And you will actually be using this document the entire semester to take notes on Photoshop techniques so that you can implement them and refer back to them as you guys are working with tutorials and editing your digital images. Okay, so you can either go up to the top up here to the star and click the star and put it on your bookmarks bar, or you can go up to bookmarks and go down to bookmark this page. Okay, make this easily accessible so that you guys can go back to your notes very easily. And we will be using these for the first 3 to 4 days of our Photoshop intros. Okay, so where we're going to start with is our actual window within Photoshop. So to begin, minimize your screen in Chrome, and I want you guys to actually open up photobooth. Take a picture. So I'm going to use one I took at school. Okay, so here's the picture that I'm going to be using. Okay, remember, use one that's ugly, then you guys have more fun with it. Okay, maybe I should use one with LJ. There we go. I'll use that one. Okay, so take a picture when the light is on within photobooth so that you can actually see. But when you guys are doing this, I want you to do it where you can have some distortion, but keep the original coloring. Don't use one of the effects that changes the color, because the first technique we're going to use today is a filter, and we want to make sure that we can actually see the filter on our image. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click this in my little bar down here where I can see all the pictures I've taken, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag it to the PS at the bottom of the screen, which is Adobe Photoshop, which opens Adobe Photoshop. Okay, so it will actually bounce and open for you. Okay, so now that image actually opens up in Photoshop. Okay, so I'm just going to click back. Now you can see at the bottom of your screen in photobooth, there's a little black dot underneath it. It says that photobooth is open. I don't need photobooth open right now, so I'm just going to hit Command Q and quit out. The more programs you guys have running, the slower your computer runs. Okay, so I'm going to take this picture of LJ and myself. Okay, now I'm just going to, I like to open up my notes and keep them behind me. I'm not going to be typing notes for you guys today. I'm going to be referencing them. Okay, and you guys are going to be typing notes. Okay, so the first one on my list is my window. So in Photoshop, make sure next to the apple at the top you can actually see the word Photoshop. Okay, this means you are in the program. When I click off right now, you can see it looks like I'm still in Photoshop because I can see my window, but I'm not. I'm actually just in my Finder. Okay, so you can see Finder next to the apple. So click on Photoshop so you can see everything. And I want you to go to Window on the top bar. Okay, now this is one of the most important places within Photoshop because this is where everything is housed. So if you need to find your layers palette, pretty much everything else on our notes sheet comes from our actual window, because that's what we're looking at right now is our Photoshop window. So this is where we turn on and off different elements. So the window is where everything is held. Okay, when I look at my second topic over here on my notes sheet, you can see it is my history. So I need to go to Window to actually turn on my history. Okay, what your history does in Photoshop is it tells you every single thing you have done so far within editing. Okay, so my history is over here. Okay, you can see it's check marked, which means it's on. Okay, my history is over here, and you can see that's the name of the photo because that's how it names the photo within photobooth. Okay, and all I've done so far is I've actually opened my image. So as I show you more techniques within Photoshop, you will actually see that more things will pop up in your history because we've actually done more things. Okay, so your history tells you everything that has been done on your image. Okay, now right below my history, you can see my layers palette. Okay, you already know how to turn this on. Go up to your window, go down to layers, and make sure that is check marked. Now, when you see F7 over here, at the top of your keyboard, you will see different quick keys, like for your volume, the brightness of the screen, and you'll also see an F key up there. If you hit F7, that will turn your layers on as well. If you forget which key is for that, just go up to Window and turn it on. So I need my layers turned on. That is especially important as we go through and learn how to edit in Photoshop so that you guys can see the before and after in your actual techniques, okay? So my layers is turned on, here it is, and you can see right here, I have one layer right now, and that's my background layer. That's the actual image that I just started off with, okay? Now this little eyeball at the end here, okay, that allows my layer to be visible, okay? So if you actually just hover over it, it will tell you it indicates layer visibility. So as we start to add on more layers, if you want to turn a layer off, you would click the eyeball and it will allow you to turn the layer off, okay? So I'm going to move over my layer so you guys can see my notes. So we've done our window where we find everything that we can do, all of our different settings in Photoshop. History, which is right above here, it tells you every step you've taken. All I've done so far is open my image. And layers, okay, and that's my layers palette that shows you everything that has popped up in a different layer, okay? And the layers palette works like a sandwich. Whatever's on the bottom is like the bottom piece of bread. Everything on top of it affects what is below it. So if I put a black and white layer on top of everything, everything will turn black and white. And you'll see that as we start to edit, okay? Now, next on my list is my tools bar, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go up to a window, I'm gonna click on it. Now down here at the bottom, all of this is in alphabetical order until you get to the end where it says tools, okay, since that is extremely important, okay? And the tools actually turns on this bar, which over on my screen is over on the left-hand side, okay? This is where students panic when they think they've broken Photoshop, is when their different areas of their window actually disappear. It just means that something's turned off and they need to turn it back on, okay? Now, within our actual tools bar, okay, so I just pulled mine off so you could actually see it, okay? There are lots of tools on here that you can see right now. I'm going to go to the actual paintbrush tools for you to see it. Now you can see the word brush tool popped up with a B in parentheses. What that's telling me is if I want to get to the brush tool quickly, I would hit the letter B on my keyboard as a quick key. Now, I'm not going to quiz you or test you on quick keys. However, if you're using a tutorial like clone stamp, would be S, okay? If you are using a tutorial that you need to get to a brush quickly so you are more productive, learn your quick keys. So if I want the brush tool right now, I just hit B on my keyboard, and now you can see it hit my brush tool. It selected my brush tool, okay? Now, on my brush tool, you can see if I actually hold it down, that little white arrow in the lower right-hand corner of the tool, if I hold it down, you can see there are actually tools hidden within that tool, okay? Now, Photoshop actually does this so that when you are working within Photoshop, you don't have 800 tools on your toolbar. Instead, they try to group like tools together under one area. So under the brush tool, there is also the pencil tool, the color replacement tool, and the mixer brush tool, okay? And actually for day 2 in Photoshop, we'll be using the brush tool to work with color, okay? So one more thing to point out is within every single tool within Photoshop, there are settings. So I'm on the brush tool again. If you take a look up on this top bar, it's going to look different no matter what tool you are on. So this number 6 up here will actually help me change the size of my brush, the hardness of my brush, which would be the outside, whether it's fuzzy like this and soft or it's hard like this, okay? I can change the opacity, which is something we'll do tomorrow with color. But every single tool has settings within that tool, okay? So that's our toolbars. And then down at the bottom, you can see this is our foreground color, and this is our background color. So right now, if I were to paint, I'd be painting in red, okay? So the toolbar is where all of our tools are housed, everything that we can use to edit within Photoshop, okay? Now we have 2 more for today. The next one is our adjustments. So I want to go back up to window and I want to go down and I want to turn on my adjustments. Okay. Adjustments are essentially quick edits. Okay. And what quick edits can do is actually whatever your adjustment you are going to make, it will pop up in a new layer of its own. So you'll actually see this reflected in the history right now and the layers. So let's say I want to turn this black and white. Okay, so when you scroll over, you can see I'm on brightness and contrast right now, and it tells you create a new brightness and contrast adjustment layer. Levels, okay, and if you don't know what something is, click on it, play with it. If you don't like it, I'll show you how to drag it to the garbage can, okay? So I'm going to go to black and white right now, okay? So when I click on this, you can see in my layers palette over here, it made a new black and white layer. And right up here at the top, it says properties. And what that's allowing me to do is actually change how my picture looks within black and white. So I can play with that, okay? If you look right here where it says tint, I could also give it a tint, like a certain color, like I want it blue within black and white, okay? Now, as you can see, I'm just going to click off over here. In my history, okay, I've opened the photo, I made a new black and white layer, and then I modified my black and white layer, okay? Now in my layers palette, you can see it as well, okay? What popped up? A black and white layer above the background layer, so that's why, okay, my image looks black and white with that blue tint. So if I come over here and actually turn off this eyeball, it turns off the actual layer, okay? Now, I'm not going to be playing with my adjustments today, so I'm just going to turn this layer back on, and then to delete my layer, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to click on the black and white layer, and I'm going to click and drag. Inside the layers palette, there's a little garbage can in the lower right-hand corner. I just deleted that layer. Okay, so that's how you actually delete a layer. So we've gone through window, history, layers, the toolbar, and adjustments. Okay, now I am going to skip and just show you real quick how to copy the background layer so that you guys can see that for tomorrow. And then we're going to be doing our filter for today. Okay, so we just learned how to delete a layer by clicking and dragging it to the garbage can. To make a background copy layer, what you do is you click on the background and you drag it down to the icon next to the garbage can that looks like a piece of paper with a folded corner, and you drop it. Okay, you can also right click on here and do a layer from background as well. Okay, and now you can see I have 2 layers on there because I already had one. But that's not necessary, and you can start to see these things pop up in my history as well. Okay, so I don't need a background copy layer today, so I'm just going to click and drag that to the garbage can, but I will need that to start on my next technique tomorrow. So last but not least, we're going to be doing our filters, okay? And what our filters are is you guys are used to doing that on Instagram, on your phone, on Facebook. It's just playing with the coloring and the technique of an image, okay? So make sure I'm on my background. I only have 1 layer right now, but I'm on my background layer, okay? I'm going to click off my adjustments, and I'm actually going to go up to filter at the top. And I'm going to come down to filter gallery. So there's lots of different options here that you guys may use as you start to play in Photoshop and work in tutorials. But today we're going to be using filter gallery. Okay. Now you can see it's applying it to my image and I can see it 100%. Okay. If it's really big or really small, you might have to zoom in or zoom out. Okay. And these little arrows here, if your screen looks like this, you just have to click this little side arrow to actually open up the dialog box. Okay, so I can actually click on different images. So let's say I want to be a poster. I want to look like a cartoon. Okay, then over here I can actually play with the thickness of those lines. Okay, posterization of it. Maybe I want to come down here, go to glowing edges. There's so many different options. Okay, so I kind of like my poster edges. Okay, so find one that you like, play with it, have fun with it. Click OK when you're done. Okay, and now it actually applied my filter to my image. Okay, now if I had kept my background copy layer, it would have applied that filter to my background copy layer, and I would still have my original background behind it. Okay. Now we need to save our image so that we have all of our Photoshop demos ready to share out at the end of the week. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to File, Save As. Okay. Now right here I'm saving in a pictures folder that I don't know where that exists. Okay. When we started working on the computers, look over inside our Finder window, which is where we are right now. You'll see under Favorites it says Desktop. Click on Desktop, and I had you guys make a folder with your name on it. So you can see it says Mrs. Wendell. Okay, and inside there's a darkroom folder, a digital folder, and a research folder. Click on Digital, okay, and then down here at the lower left-hand corner, it says New Folder. Okay, so I'm going to click on New Folder, and I'm actually going to type in Photoshop Demos, okay, because with my Photoshop Demos, I'm going to have 4 or 5 of these, and I'm going to put all of them in here to show my level of learning within Photoshop. So I hit Create. Now up here I went to Save As. I don't want to save it as photo on 8/22/17, okay? I want to highlight this, and I want to title it what the directions said on Classroom, okay? And this was our filter image. So I'm Kay Wendell, okay? So I'm going to put Kay Wendell. You're going to do your first initial last name, and then just space and filter, okay? And we're going to save it into that folder. Now, format down here is very important, okay? When you are done editing an image, you need to save as a JPEG. That's how we're going to be able to upload it to actually Google Classroom, okay? When you are not finished and you have different layers to still work with, you would actually save it as a Photoshop document. But today we're just saving it as a JPEG, okay? So I'm going to click Save. Okay, now this dialog box pops up. Make it 12. Okay, that's the actual quality of the image. Don't just click out right away. When it says JPEG options, you want it to be a higher quality image so that we can actually see it. It's not blurry and pixelated. Okay, so then if you click this preview box, it tells you how big it is. It has to be below 5 M. That's 5 megabytes. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. Now I can Command Q, quit out of Photoshop. Okay, and now here's my Mrs. Wendell folder, and within here I can check to see Digital, Photoshop Demos, and there's my image that I will be pulling to my Google Drive folder.